Good afternoon, folks. Hey, this is Terry and Tom with the Metaphysical Mysteries Podcast. And today we have with us Audrey Yagalla. Trying to get your name correct. Audrey comes to us from the great state of Pennsylvania. And I don't know if she's an Eagles fan or she's a Steelers fan. We'll hold that for later. For those of you who are fans, you'll still listen to her if I don't want to shut you out early. But she is a Reiki Master, and she's been through NLP and certified there, and Theta healing, as well as doing some shamanistic stuff, working with runes and so forth. Lots of different neat stuff. She's a writer, a healer, and a sage. And I've had the opportunity to interact with Audrey multiple times, and always a blast, always fun. And so, hey, Audrey, thanks for coming. I know you got a cool book coming out. Matter of fact, today, correct me if I'm wrong, but today is the day. It comes out on Amazon. It's called Out of the Shadows. Is that correct?
That is very correct.
Well, cool. Very cool. Well, hey, tell us something about yourself. That's a little intro that I had, but you know more about yourself than I do. So what's going on with Audrey these days?
Start. So I'm super excited about this book. Stepping out of a big comfort zone, stepping out into the world, telling my truth. My voice will no longer be silent. It's about a journey to healing, and a path that isn't a straight line, was never a straight line. It had beeps and bumps and spirals and lots of onion peeling. And it's about the modalities I used to get to where I am today. And in doing the paths to healing, I've also learned the path so I can help others.
Okay. So for the folks out there, the listeners, although you have all these psychic skills and stuff and had them before this issue related to the book, and you've had it since, but this is about a pedophile priest who victimized you when you were a little girl, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I was groomed, chosen out of many people who are money counters, and it proceeded and happened all throughout my high school years. Ended freshman year of college, and I was the person who the Attorney General of Pennsylvania spoke about, who had the abortion paid for by the Roman Catholic Church.
Gotcha. So,
And
now this made news. What, it was a couple of years ago? Was this 2019? Am I got that right? Where it really made a lot of news? Because I remember seeing it, although I don't live in your state, but I remember hearing about it.
August 14, 2018.
18. Okay. 18. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's the day my children found out about my past.
Okay. Wow. That popped a bubble, didn't it?
It sure did.
Yeah.
It sure did.
Yeah.
And on different form of healing.
Right.
Different form of healing.
Yeah.
Voice.
I want to ask you, because obviously you've got some expertise in this area. I mean, since all this happened, I'm sure you've had to do tons of research during your, therapies and every other thing you've had to do to get yourself well. My understanding of the statistics I last saw, and Tom, maybe you jump in on this too, but it was 4 out of 10 people have had some kind of abuse. And a lot of people believe that number is actually significantly higher than that. But I think statistically we can prove 4 out of 10. Does that sound fair?
That sounds fair. It almost sounds almost too low, unfortunately. For example, I went to mail 3 books at the post office. And I was so excited. I said to the woman, this is the postmaster, this is a book that I wrote about healing from trauma, from sexual abuse.
Sure.
And she says, I'm a survivor. And I said, you are? And she proceeded to tell me her story. And then she said, I've never told anyone until you.
Wow.
Older than me, happened when she was 10, and I'm getting emails already, and the book is just released.
Amazing.
I was too.
Yeah.
This is what happened to me.
Right.
But my story isn't only about what happened to me, though. It's giving hope It's my hope that it gives hope to people that they can be whole, complete, well-functioning human beings again. Because
Right.
the path is a bumpy road, and sometimes you don't see that light. It's my hope that the book offers light and different possibilities, because cognitive therapy isn't the end all do well for many people. There's
Right.
many different avenues.
Absolutely. Tom, do you have a
So
comment on that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I want to say I'm sorry you had to go through that. And no child should have to deal with that. There's too many layers of betrayal in that incident, especially being a priest that does that. So it can disrupt the core values in many levels. That's the first thing I would want to say before we even start this. How did you find the path through it and out of it? You talked about different therapies and such. What did you end up using, and how did you survive it, mentally and such as you went through the years?
in the beginning, I was on a lot of medication, ended up in hospital twice. Then when I started doing the Reiki and the Neuro-Linguistic programming, it just seemed to ease the bumps a lot. It just seemed to balance my energies. How did I keep on going? I had nieces that gave me my drive to continue for them. And then I had my children, and my children were the drive. And now I'm driven to end the ancestral things. I want my children to have a clean slate and their children to have a clean slate as best as they can. And I know a lot of this is just patterns through years and years. So there was really no one point or one modality that helped me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Although I must say that getting my soul parts back with the shamanic practice was indeed very, very, very powerful for me, as well as the theta healing. And I do breath work as well. And there's so many different layers of all these modalities. I just can't say, do this because this is the best. It's all based on what you need at the time. You might do Reiki for 5 years and find something else, and it fits because that's where you are in your path. That's where you are in your process.
Right, exactly. Well, it's like I tell people, it's like a plumber or a carpenter. They come to your house with a whole toolbox full of tools, and when they need the wrench, they get the wrench out. When they need the hammer, they get the hammer out. There's an order in which you do these things, and so I would tell practitioners to try to broaden your scope as much as you can. And you brought up one interesting point about heredity, and you want to make sure that they're clear. Well, scientifically, we have found out, and this was through Holocaust victims, that trauma has been passed down through the DNA to the children and grandchildren from Holocaust victims. So if you're a victim of this sort of abuse as well, that certainly could be passed down and needs to be addressed. And I don't know if it even skips generations from grandparent to grandchild, probably does. I don't think we know the whole story yet, but anytime you try to clear ancestral lines, I think that's what they're trying to talk about. For the listener out there who doesn't know what the hell we just talked about, we just said here a few minutes ago, let us say that they have found scientifically that is, in fact, a case where it passes down through the generations. And sometimes you see that, with Tom and I in our police work, we would see 2 or 3 generations of families that have the exact same problems over and over, whether it is this problem of abuse through sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or just drugs or whatever. And as soon as you see the kid in kindergarten, boy, doesn't likely have a chance, because look at the parents, look at the grandparents, and it's like in their being that this kid is going to end up in the same situation. So yeah, I mean, healing all those generational things would be great if it could be done, and with the right people and the right technique, you can make some real improvements there.
I do believe that it will come to pass, that it will. They're studying epigenetics, and that's what the scientific component is the epigenetics. So I always say it's going to be a great day when spirituality and science meet and realize they're all on the same page.
Yeah, that's what this podcast is all about. You just named it. That's exactly what we're here for, because we're not that far apart. We just don't know how to communicate really well with each other yet.
Yeah. You know, the theta, I mean, it all comes down to quantum physics, doesn't it?
Yes.
Mhm.
Going beyond time, space, dimensions, realms, multiverses, and throughout the DNA.
Right.
It's all quantum. It's all quantum physics. It's all quantum healing. We just have to widen that narrow scope as a humanity and just expand. And we're there. We're coming there.
Right. And I would encourage the listeners, if you don't know what quantum physics is, look it up. That's what I used to say in the academy. Look it up and, look at the definitions. What's quantum? What, is quantum physics? What are they? And kind of get a sense of it. So when people are throwing these words out at you, you can assimilate that and understand what they're talking about and apply it to the field in question. Because in our industry, like many other industries, the woo-woo industry comes up with a lot of woo-woo terminology, and we just take it for granted. But for the other average person out there, they're like having to learn this language on top of trying to really believe or not believe what we're saying is true or whatever. So I would encourage people to become the student and really dig in, because that's the only way you're really going to learn this. You're not going to believe it. I tell people never to believe me. Go find it out for yourself. If you want to spend years and years doing it, fine. If you want to listen to my summary of it, that's great too. But believe me, you need to dig in yourself.
That's very true. And you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it.
Right.
Right.
I had a surgeon one time tell me, he goes, I think he says it's the height of arrogance to believe just because I don't know something, that somebody else doesn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get ourselves into those, especially getting to the high level professions, and they believe, hey, if I was to know it, I would have known it clearly, but no, that's not necessarily true. So I thought that was really real of him to say that.
Very much so.
Yeah. Tommy?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right on with that. The whole quantum piece, that is the future. It's kind of sad that all the stuff we learned in high school is becoming obsolete really fast. If you really want to learn this, look at your elementary and middle school kids, their homework, and then you'll start to get a sense of the future, I guess, for us, right? Having to relearn everything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to do the math that they're doing now. I'd have to go back to school for it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Next time I circle around, I want to get a few more of those math genes. So,
right.
Yeah, I definitely want to get some more math genes for sure. But so let me ask you this. Okay, so you go through this terrible situation for a number of years, and we've noticed, as Tom and I have interviewed a number of people that people that are psychic mediums, they oftentimes have had some significant trauma, a variety of traumas, but oftentimes similar situation as what you described. And it really forces them to go within themselves to find freedom, to find peace. And they make that contact with these entities on the outside, or what we consider the outside. It's really within. Did you find that the case, that you really were able to focus yourself, or needed to, in order to move on?
Oh, did I ever? That's an understatement. Yes, I finally, at one point, after failed relationships, I'm like, this is enough. I need to go and love myself. You gotta love yourself used to drive me crazy. But until you go in and you pull all the gunk out and all the goo, and you look hard and long at where it came and how it got there, and you pull and you sit with it, and then you release it, that's when you start healing. You have to be able to face those dark shadows, those dark nights of the soul, of the stuff you don't like. When I used to work in the school system, a little boy used to say, but I don't want to get rid of my yuckies. I like my yuckies. Right. When you want to heal yourself, you have to be able to get rid of the yuckies and address them instead of square in the face.
Let me ask you a question. If you were to speak to your 12-year-old self with all the knowledge and wisdom that you have now, what would you advise your 12-year-old self to do?
Boy, I was pretty ferocious back then, because even when I approached him after a car ride, I went in and I would just have to to say to her, it's okay to be strong, but it's okay to tell somebody too.
Mhm.
Because I was that little girl who was fierce and fiercely independent, and from a broken family. Like my family was just, my mom was in a depression, my dad was going through his stuff. I was the youngest of 7. I was flying solo essentially. So I was that spunky little girl, who stood up for herself many times. And I did at that one moment. I would just say, keep on sticking up for yourself. And yeah, it's okay to use your voice to think, just tell.
Well,
I've gone through this whole scenario so many times in my head.
right. Well, let me switch the question up a little bit and ask you this. If you were a parent and that 12-year-old girl came to you and said, Mommy, Daddy, this is happening to me, what should a parent do?
They should listen. They should hear them. They should ask for specific details and look them in the eye and tell them, tell me more.
Mhm.
I want to hear more. I want to hear every little bit, even though it's painful. Tell me more and listen and trust that they're telling you the truth. That's what they need to do.
Now, as it relates to breakthrough therapy, I'm going to call it that for lack of a better term. You talked about many different kinds of therapy that, like the layer of the onion. Okay, I get that. But was there one kind of therapy that kind of opened the can, so to speak, for you, and you said, okay, I see light at the end of the tunnel? What was the first thing that you came across and go, okay, this is something I can actually deal with,
Theta healing was for me transformational in many ways because I thought I had a connection to God, to source. But when Fred Salzman did the first session, it was in a group, and I said, yeah, I guess connect me to source. And when I was sitting there in this quiet meditation, I feel tears going down my face. And I'm like, oh, there you go, your big baby, you're crying again, right? The meditation's over. I go to wipe my tears and there's nothing there. And he says, you were so tough to get back to source, but you did it. And I realized it was my soul crying for the reunion back to source.
Right.
That was pivotal for me. That was pivotal.
Well, let's talk about theta for a minute so the listeners understand when you say theta. What we're talking about, folks, is we're talking about the brain waves and being able to get your brain waves down to the slower and slower amount of brain waves. And theta, we got gamma. I was really almost dead there at that point, in a coma. And then there's theta and there's beta. And I mean, there's alpha, and, goes on down through the different brain waves. So what is the best way in your experience to get to a theta brainwave?
That's a tough question for me to answer because I can go like that.
Yeah.
Best for anybody who wants just to sit in a quiet meditative state and visualize going up different levels. And as you go up different levels, your body is going into just this total relaxation spot. And then trusting your answers and trusting what you're seeing. Because the theta brainwave, your monkey mind isn't going a mile a minute anymore.
Right.
You're in that receptive mode. And that's where you can ask the questions, the big questions and the little questions in the theta state. And the biggest thing is to trust the answers that you're given. Instead of saying, who, me? Or you really think I should do that? Yeah. Because that's your brain, that's your higher self coming in and saying, yeah, do this, or this is what should be done.
Right.
And it's a really powerful place in the mind to be because everything else falls away.
Right. Yeah. And for the listeners, a lot of people can walk around in alpha almost I mean, once they get to that certain level of peace zone, you're almost walking around in alpha all the time. And then if you just need to drop a little lower into theta, it's not much effort to do that, and you can tell those people, they just have a sense of peace around them when they walk in the room. You can tell they're not all wound up, and they just walk in and they're probably in alpha, if not shifting to theta at any second. They're right at that borderline. And for folks that want to do biofeedback, where they hook your brain up and so forth, you can actually see those brain waves and start to get some handle on that from doctors hooking you up and so forth. I don't know, Tommy, if you do any of that stuff or not with your equipment.
Yeah, we can measure some of that as well. We can see under stress loads the shift in the brain waves, and we predominantly for the listener, I guess probably the best way to know you're there is you're almost in that like daydreamy kind of state. Or perhaps, have you ever done something where you're like driving down the road and all of a sudden you realize where you're at, but you're like, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. That's probably the simplest way to explain it for the person that's not really practiced in shifting those levels.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that, when there's snowstorms out, we all live in states that have snow, and they talk about, you see the snow coming, and they always tell you to use your dim lights so you're not using your brights. They'll put you in that state. It'll put you in alpha or theta very quickly. You can easily crash a car and be in really danger if you're not careful, because it can put you in a state of hypnosis, and hypnosis puts you in alpha and or theta. As a master hypnotherapist, I can tell you that's exactly where you're headed to. And it's that classic thing. All of a sudden I show up in my driveway and I do not remember the trip from the grocery store home. So you were there.
Yes, I experienced that on my way home from Rochester yesterday.
Yeah, you go.
It's like, how did I get here so fast?
Yes, exactly. And time flies because you get outside the sense of time too. And that's when I do, hypnosis on folks. We might be there for an hour and 10 minutes or something, and then they wake up and they think maybe 7-8 minutes, right. And they just have no sense of time whatsoever. It seems like it's so quick, but in fact, they've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So from a regular therapeutic point of view, psychologist and psychiatrist, did any of that play any role, or did you just kind of stay away from that, or did you engage that as well?
Well, I was in therapy for many years. I had psychiatrists. And at one point, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I said, I don't want to do any more medication for now. Right. And I didn't go back on medication.
Okay.
My second, I did. I was in and out of like the Wellbutrin, the pharmaceuticals for a little while. Right. But now, no. Right. Now. Years of therapy, and I had the best therapist. My last therapist was the best because I sat in her office and said, I love you. I like coming, but I don't want to keep on coming. What else is there? And she's the one who led me to shamanism.
Nice.
And the soul retrieval.
Good.
Yeah.
And the concept behind soul retrieval for the listener is that there's parts and pieces you've left. And of course, you have to believe in reincarnation first off, or none of this is going to make any sense. So that you've left in past lives, potentially future lives, you left parts and pieces behind, and you're trying to retrieve those things to make yourself whole. And otherwise, some people will call it something different besides soul retrieval. They'll call it a lot of different things, but basically going back and ancestrally fixing and bringing it all together, healing parts and pieces so that you're sound in current day and time. And when you do that, then it makes all the rest of it before and after. If you think of it in a linear way, it's not really, it's a circle. So it's not linear like we think, but we think of it that way. So past and present or future is all in one line, but it's truly not. It's all happening at the same time. That's quite a concept.
And may I interject, a soul often leaves the body for even minor traumas like a fender bender, getting yelled at by a parent can cause a small soul retrieval. A big event can cause a soul like a soul to leave and not come back fully. So even if it's that little essence that needs to come back, when you bring that essence back in, your soul essence back, you're making a more of a complete full soul. And that's Absolutely. The essence of the soul retrieval. So I use
that I use that in a form, it's called tactical imaging.
Yeah.
It's a system that we use, and does do exactly the very same thing. We don't call it exactly that because, well, we're in a format that we didn't want to call it that, but that in effect, it's the same thing.
Well, isn't it beautiful that there's so many modalities and healing means out there, but essentially you change the words, but it's all the same.
True, 100%.
There's different ways of getting there, and some take longer than others, and there's different flavors for everybody who needs them.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of healing and doing some of the psychic medium stuff, so we're going to shift you over to your business of psychic mediumship and so forth. And how is that going? I mean, what do you do? Do you see people regularly, or just do them over the phone, or you do it on Zoom, or how do you proceed?
I do it over Zoom.
Okay.
Over a Zoom meeting, or I have people in person. I also do events, so I'll do oracle readings, and when I do my things, it's a lot of channeling. So I literally step aside. Oftentimes, I say to my clients, if there's a question, you need to ask when I'm in there because I might not remember.
Right.
So and whatever comes, like, so if a client comes for Neuro-Linguistic, if a client comes for Akashic Records session, to me, when I go into Akashic Record, it doesn't mean a thing if you're Cleopatra. So what? What does that mean in this lifetime?
It means I don't have to read this.
Is there something that is from that lifetime that is being presented in this lifetime that needs to either be healed or brought forth?
Right.
So I might not get that you were a gladiator, but I might get, that, well, maybe you were, but maybe you were a gladiator and something happened and there was a forgiveness that needs to happen, or a reconciliation that needs to be happening, or a contract that needs to be ended, or a vow or commitment, or there's magic involved, or oaths. So that's all cleared through time, space, dimensions, realms throughout the entire DNA when I go into the records. So I figure if we're in there, this space is wide open for healing. They've come to me as a client. They want healing.
Cool.
So
I think the Akashic Records is absolutely fascinating. And for the listeners, just keep in mind Akashic Records, what we're talking about there is what Christians would call the Book of Life.
Yes.
And it's a record of your soul and your soul memory from the beginning of time. And what all you've experienced as a soul, what different bodies you've been, whether you've been male, female, black, white, Asian, Indian, whatever, doesn't make any difference. All those experiences, whether you're on this earth or someplace else, those are all recorded. And so you have the ability, and I think Edgar Casey from the ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment, of course now dead, but the great sleeping prophet, he really, really used the Akashic Records a lot to give part of his 14,000 readings in his lifetime. And I think all of us have kind of pivoted off of some of that experience and material.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
whose record am I going into?
I don't care. You can use either one of us. We're both good training dummies if you want to give it a whirl.
Tom?
Whatever you would like. I'm game.
Okay. All right. So I need to do a disclaimer here. So I release on people's behalfs. So if I cough, sneeze, burp, dry heave, it's okay. My body is not affected. I have no recollection. It's just the way I remove and release things on people's behalf. And I'm not affected. It kind of sounds crazy sometimes when I'm coughing or doing something, but I'm perfectly fine. Also, sometimes my hands go. Sometimes I'll start speaking light language, different languages. So just so you know. So let's set sacred space, shall we?
Sure.
Okay. So as we are sitting in this sacred space of safety and sovereignty, we call in what I call the umbrella team of Red Rock, Hazmat, Absorption, Guardian Circle Protocol, and Hitchhiker Shield, knowing that we are sovereign, We call in our divine soul star families, our spiritual teams of highest light resonance of truth and integrity. We call any others of light, of good, to come and be with us in this sacred space. Space is set. It is done. Tom, do I have your permission to connect with your higher self, your spiritual team of highest light and resonance, and access your Akashic records?
Absolutely.
Is there any question or anything that you would like to know offhand? Any pressing?
Nothing pressing. I would say probably, what is it that I need to know?
Okay.
What's the most important thing for me to know right now?
He does need to know what's causing some heart palpitations.
Okay. So they're giving me just a silly little saying, and it's not silly, it means a lot. So in the end, kindness truly only really is what matters. And that's even before we get into the records. And they're telling me that you live your life following that motto, that kindness truly does matter, and that you put your heart into everything you do. The shadows of life tend to follow you and tap you on the back, on the shoulder. And they keep on saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. And you look at them with glaring eyes and you infiltrate their being. And it's almost like instantly they're gone. You have that ability to make darkness disappear just like that.
Okay.
Okay. We didn't even get in the record yet. There was a book put out a while back called Many Lives, Many Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's they're telling me that was a pivotal book for you. You've read that, and was it pivotal indeed?
I have not read it. I have heard of it though.
So perhaps it's time that you read it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Dr. Brian Weiss.
yes. I mean, Dolores Cannon has done much work after him, but they're suggesting you read that. Many
Okay.
Lives, Many Masters. It's a simple book. Why is this important? And they're telling me, I asked why it's important, and they're telling me that it's important because you will start to find that as you keep on attempting to master this life, there's many parts from many different lives that are bleeding through, that want to present themselves. And in your forensic field of study, you have indeed researched and followed darkness, the path of darkness, such as Jack the Ripper. You were very analytical in that, and you knew who it was. You knew who that criminal was in that lifetime. And even though you had the forensics and the science behind it, you were laughed at and scoffed at, and they literally turned their shoulders to you in that lifetime. But you knew who it was, and you were correct in that lifetime who it was. It was that lifetime that you are carrying forward in this lifetime, because you are having more fact-based things coming forth and more ways to prove different things, and not necessarily only forensics, but the psyche of the mind and the pathways that criminals walk. And you try to trace them back to their points of origin to correct it. Does that resonate with you?
I think that's probably more along the line of the counseling, trying to get to the core issues.
Okay.
Probably where that applies more accurately, or
Okay.
most accurately.
But it is intertwined in a spun kind of way, and as a web. They're showing me that you get to the point, and it's also oftentimes very deductible, making deductions and helping them find their pathways by you connecting their dots, but not in a way that gives them the information, but helping them.
Correct.
But helping them. So they just said the words Jesuit priest. You were a Jesuit priest in a lifetime, and in that lifetime, 1500s. I see the bell ringing, and you lived a very pious life, but even the very religious, very spiritual life, but you were very well taken care of by the community. You were lavished with good food and not prosperity, but abundance of the necessary things you needed, because you were very revered in that lifetime, and people came to you for solace, and they came to you for reconciliation with their God. And there's a thing with medicines, with tinctures that you did when they were ill too. So not only were you a Jesuit priest, but you were also in the healing arts as a Jesuit priest, which was very perhaps not looked upon positively. But you didn't care. These were your people, and you helped your people no matter what. And your people knew you had that. Your people in that lifetime knew that you had their back, and in the same, they had yours. It was a beautiful symbiosis in the community. Do you study the old ways of medicine?
I have. I'm actually completing a doctorate in natural medicine right now.
Yes, that's where it's coming through. Yes. May I download the information from that lifetime into your field?
Sure.
I have your permission.
If that helps my dissertation go simple, game on. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay. Bringing forth the lifetime where you knew the herbs, the medicines, the plants, where you made the tinctures, where you cured. But all these lifetimes, there's multiple lifetimes coming together. 6 lifetimes coming together. I'm seeing a globe, a gold sphere above your head, and it's just slowly coming down into your crown, coming over and into your whole head, and it's traveling down into your throat, down into your heart, going down to your feet, cycling back up to your heart and resting into your heart space. When you connect with your mind's eye to your heart and you're writing your dissertation, they're saying to connect with your mind's eye, your heart, and let it flow out your mouth or through your hands, and the information will flow more readily and more easily to you, and the knowledge base will come to you. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And how's it feeling? Same, different?
Oh, good.
Good. Do you have any questions?
I'm sure I'm going to have a million when we end this session.
Okay.
That's usually when
Okay. Okay. I'm going to close your records.
Okay.
Records are now closed. Records are now closed. Records are now closed. I'm going to disconnect. Okay.
Yay, that was good, huh?
Yep.
Audrey, I got a little something for you while you were doing that, if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, well, they started out and they said, you're a mountain climber, which is, they say, attack and conquer, which is obviously giving a sense of what you are as a human being. I mean, you climb mountains, the big projects in front of you, and you go after it, and then you conquer it, and you do it. It says, be of good cheer. It says your Chiron has been accomplished. It says a finishing school is your current status. It says ideals will be accomplished finally, as you might say, and as your mind might say. So ideals, not ideas, ideals will be accomplished as your mind might say. They're kind of relating to the human mind. It says, although you were never off track, even though it felt that way, it says forthright speech. Get to it here. Trying to jot it all down. It comes so fast. Forthright speech serves you well. It says love must permeate your being, your thoughts, and your mannerisms in any interaction with your fellow man. You're already doing that. Mm-hmm. It says, unto you will be given a communication method which will connect you to spirit records, and your fellow travelers. Be appreciative of your journey.
Thank you.
So that was just the overall message, which I thought was nice, but you're a mountain climber. So how about that? I guess you would concur with that. So
I sure do. Thank you. That's a beautiful message and something I needed to hear. It's been quite a couple of weeks. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You're in a finishing school. How interesting is that? So your Chiron, now that goes back to, and I'm not an astrologist, but I've stayed at a Holiday Inn overnight. So, but the Chiron, I believe, is the big major hurt of your life that people come in with, and you're done.
Yes.
Yeah. How about that? So yeah, so that's kind of and I don't claim to be an astrologist, but I believe that's the big deal there. And then you move into kind of your midheaven and some of the other things. But basically, what they're saying is you're you're now able to accomplish your ideals, what you would say were ideals in your human mind. So
Awesome.
very, very exciting. So
It
you weren't ever off track, although it felt that way.
many times it
Many
did feel
times.
that way.
But this was part of what you set forth. You climbed the mountain. You really did. This wasn't your first rodeo in this situation. This had happened before, and in many other lifetimes. And so it was finally you said, "I'm gonna beat it this time. I'm gonna conquer," and you did. So yay! About that.
Me.
Yeah. And then it goes and talks about basically forthright speech. Say it. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out. That's going to serve you well. Say it. What's on your mind. You need to get it out without hesitation. And it says love must permeate your being. It already does, but even further. So in all your thoughts and in your mannerisms and the manner in which you interact with your fellow humans, fellow travelers, if you will. That's going to serve you extremely well. And it says, unto you will be given a communication method. I think it's going to be unique to you, which will connect you to spirit records, and your fellow travelers. So be appreciative of your journey, because I think you're in the gravy area is what I call it.
Okay.
The big gooey junk is done, and I think you're in the gravy at this point. Yeah, icing on the cake.
Yay.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey, right?
Yeah. No
and
kidding.
I have to share with you, a few months ago in a meditation, I was given an opportunity to leave. I call it a tap out.
Sure.
And they gave me a choice. X, Y, and Z could release the book, or I can do this. I was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not done. I'm not done. And my mentor at the time said, it's a gift. You can create the life you want. And I thought, oh my, that's pretty big. That's pretty big task, me, right?
Right.
So it is about using my voice and using my experiences and all the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
And being the light.
About
not the hokey light. Like the light.
The light, the real one. The real
light.
Yeah, not the woo-woo
light.
stuff. The real one. Yeah, absolutely. Totally get that. Yeah. That's fun. That's fun. So what is it that you enjoy the most about when you give a reading?
Oh, jeeps. The freedom people feel, the relief they feel, they feel lighter. And when I do Theta, and if I do Theta with somebody and they come back like weeks later and say, my family says I'm different.
Right.
They can't put their finger on it, but they're different because their life shifts in such beautiful ways. They just don't understand it. And I'll say, well, your life is going to shift. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, right. And then they come back and say, wow, my family says this or this. And it's like, that's the beauty of it.
About that.
When they start feeling, one of the basic Theta beliefs is I love myself or I hate myself. When you do those two and you shift them, people carry themselves different. They see themselves different. And just even seeing that from afar is a beautiful thing. Right. And just knowing that just how they carry, just the lightness that they feel. And, you never know what's going to come up. And, sometimes I've had a session that I connected with Jesus on behalf of somebody. And
good guy. Love, I highly recommend him.
It was like, wow. It was, it was indescribable, the love and the peace. So for me, it's healing those, but the messages I get on a subconscious level too. And it's profound for me as much as it is for anybody else.
Yeah. You want to look at my Akashic records for a bit? You want to see what you can pick up, even if you get to the quote unquote library. For the listeners, when they talk about the library, some people see it as a library, and then they have to actually go look at your books. Other times it just opens up for them. Just depends. I don't know which way you do it, but just see how you see it. I'm always interested because I'm in a position very fortunate. I realize that I'm in an extreme position to get a lot of readings from people, but I'm fascinated by the interpretation of similar material in a different way, because I think it's all 100% valid.
Right.
But
Right.
how some people see things.
But they're telling me that the Akashics aren't for you to be read right now, but the Halls of Amenti are. Are you familiar with the Halls of Amenti?
I'm saying it again. I'm sorry, I didn't
The
catch
Halls of Amenti?
it. Okay.
That's what they're telling me. They're like, yeah, no, he's done with those.
Yeah. So what am I doing next then, since I'm done with the Akashics?
It's kind of like you've had so many readings in the Akash, it's almost like old news, is what they're telling me. You've known so much. It's almost like regurgitation is what they're telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking any plan they need me to do?
Okay. Plan?
Whatever.
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have your permission to connect with your higher self? Your entire spiritual team of highest light and resonance, and enter into the halls of Amenti on your behalf.
Well, sure. As long as you can talk the librarian out of it, I'm good with it. They're pretty guarded.
Only thing, when you go into Terry's, it's probably going to look like a series of comic books. I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, let's see. Okay, this is the message. The light you shine is bright, but it is a dim bulb in relation to the glory of God. That does not mean that your light is not brilliant, nor does it need to be any brighter. But in comparison to Creator Source God, you are but a speck. As your soul evolves and begins to morph into something even greater than you are now, and yes, it is possible, you will become lighter in density, for your density will fall away, and you'll say to yourself, how is this even possible? But rest assured, it is indeed possible. You are going into a new way of being that is of higher divine order and higher frequency of color and light. And in days and years to come, you will see sparkles on your skin like the sparkles of the sun. And this is because you truly are a part of the greater good.
So the question I would pose while you're connected is, we had an experience with a couple of people who have watched me. This has happened multiple times, where my entire body, at least the upper portion of my body, completely turned into white light.
Yes.
And they wanted to know how and what that was. I did my explanation, but I'll see if they have a better explanation.
Essentially, what they are telling me is that this is just an indication of the light body you will be becoming. And it's almost like the rainbow body that Master Jesus and other lineages of Tibetan descent, from the Tibetan descent is what they're telling me, have strive for the illumination. You are becoming And what they have seen is the illumination of your body as it is going to be. Glistening like the sun, the sparkles of I just see your body just sparkling and glistening like little diamonds all over your body. And what they experienced was you in a semblance of one of your finest hours, is what I'm being told. But these finest hours that you held at that point will be carried forth, and you won't lose it. It won't be coming in and out anymore. It will just be like that. For those who have the gift of sight, who have the gift of knowing, who have the ability to see beyond what the eyes show us, you will indeed become a light body walking planet Earth. So that is just a glimmer of what you were shown.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any final parting words they need to leave with me?
The journey is not for the faint of heart, but you have shown the strength of your heart, the strength of your body, the strength of your mind and your spirit. And all those who might try to oppose you by being naysayers will fall aside at the wayside. As you continue to ascend in your full glory, you will amass a mass of people, followers, so to speak, and they will seek your guidance. It is important for you to remember to follow your heart and leave ego at the door.
Very good. Thank you. Yay.
Yay.
How about that?
Very cool.
Cool stuff, huh?
Cool stuff.
I think people will be intrigued, to think of possibly getting a reading for themselves, and what impact that has on them and their and I want to caution people too that from a professional reading point of view, I always tell them, no more than twice a year do not get dependent on a reader, because and a true professional reader is not going to let you come back every week. They're not going to, because you need to make these decisions on your own. Your path is yours to walk, and it's not for someone else to tell you.
Right. And I must add, though, that's the Akashic.
Right.
Theta work is different.
Yes.
Because you can come back every week or every other week or even once a month, because you need that assimilation and adjustment time, but you can continue doing work. I do Theta work on myself daily.
Sure.
Daily.
I agree 100%. Yeah, that's exactly what you should be doing. And for those who don't know what that is, there's some great books out there. Theta Healing is out there, and you can read for yourself. And Theta classes are out there, but they're few and far between. They're not exactly easy to find. And they're a little pricey sometimes. But if you're really into digging deeper, then I would highly recommend, a person checking that out for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree wholehearteed. Nice. Yes.
Well, hey, this has been fun to go through and do this and to see what you do, Audrey. And, and I think your book will really shed light to a dark area that needs to be opened up. And yes, there are people that have been doing this, but, I think what you're going to do here in the angelic information and push that's coming from the other side for this is going to be really helpful. And you've already just seen the tip of the iceberg here of how many people you're going to affect and tap into. And so it takes great courage to come out from the shadows, almost as the book says, and put your information out there for people to see and to peruse and to learn from. And man, I totally agree with, you had that older lady at the post office that said, I've had this, but I never spoke about it. And it's true across the board in many of these, not only just, situations like you had with some kind of abuse, but other people have had experiences with spirit in some form or fashion. I remember teaching a class. I'm down in Key West teaching a class, which is a nice place to teach. But I had a lady who was 70 years old, and she told this whole entire elaborate story. And I said, "How old are you?" And she goes, 70. I said, "And this is the first time you've ever told it?" She's like, "Yeah." She goes, "I never had a format to tell it. If I told my mom and dad, they would think I was crazy and lock me up. If I said it at church, it made me a devil worshiper. If I said it at work, they would fire me for being a nut. So this is the first format I've ever had to actually express something that's happened to me." And I think lots of people with abusers, and almost every family that I can even think of, if you dig a little bit, has had this kind of abuse. And man, I think what you're doing is just a great service. These people get an opportunity to speak and hear the story and find a way out of the suffering, because you don't have to be a victim your entire existence, and you're never designed to be a victim. Everybody incarnates here for the purpose of love. And if you encounter this situation, first you got to love yourself, and that's really important. And then find some of these great opportunities, whether it's Theta or it's regular counseling or whatever it may be. Let's do that. Let's get people healthy.
Yes, I agree. And I didn't stay in the victim mode for long, couple of years, right? And then I moved to then I moved to survivor,
right?
And then I moved to warrior, she woman, right? Wonder Woman. And then I moved to alchemist, because she who masters her energy masters herself and masters her life.
100%.
So yay. And there's hope. There's
as we get ready to wrap this up, tell us again the name of your book and how people can find you. And if they want to find you for a reading or they want to look at your book, tell us the whole story. So we'll pop it up on the screen too. But tell us how the best way to get a hold of you is.
I can be reached at audreyyagalla.com. There's a full website there. It lets you know, you can buy it gives you a link to the book.
Okay.
It also gives you a link to services. Even from a basic consultation to see what you need.
Sure.
And then the Theta or the Akashic, or even if it's nothing that, it's not a one size fits all. So we can discuss what you think you need and we can figure it out from there. Nice. So that's all on there too.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, very good. And if they go on to Amazon, if they need to look it up or they're going to search it, give us the name they need to search.
Out of the Shadows.
Out of the Shadows. So, hey, folks, we're going to have this popped up. She's going to send a copy of that, or the cover, and Tommy's going to have that popped up on the website here. So we will have it on the metaphysicalmysteries.com website, and all of Audrey's contact information will be there. And Tom, you got some wrap-up information there?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming forth and telling your story. Over the years, I've had I'll call it the honor and the privilege to work with many survivors of that type of trauma, predominantly from the first responder and military fields. And it's a hell of a path to have to walk. But there's a lot of people that throw buzzwords out there. I train people in resiliency, and people don't even know what that is. But you're a living proof of resiliency, where you surpassed where you were and actually grew from it and passing it forward to help others. So great example to others that have lived that pathway. I think you're going to make a hell of a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, good. Audrey, thanks for being here. And man, all the best of success with your book and your practice as well. And for everybody here at the Metaphysical Mysteries, hey, thanks for joining us. And we'll be back in the future with some more exciting guests. And by all means, look Audrey up on our website and see if you can't get in and get a good reading from her and read her book and so forth. So, hey, we'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.